I don't have opinions. I have facts.
That's right.
All right. Well, welcome to Midnight Reel, episode 2.
Dose.
This is the sequel.
Oh.
Sequels are often not that good, but this one will be better than the first one. But so
There's many movies that have better sequels.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So on my left is Scott Phillips.
Howdy.
And on my right is Patrick.
Hello. How are you doing?
I like that. And I'm Joe DePew. I'm hosting today. Hashtag let Joe host.
Hashtag.
Anyways, so today's topic of the show is the rise of heroines. There's been a lot of strong girls coming to the big screen.
Less black tar heroin.
Oh. See, when you said this, I thought it was Rise of Heroin. I was studying the way wrong thing last week.
You were. But yeah, got great examples like Wonder Woman.
Captain America Part DC.
True story.
So I think one section though I wanted to kind of touch bases on is why we decided to actually do this podcast in the first place. Kind of let our listeners get to know us a little bit before we delve into the nice meaty chunks. But I'll talk about myself, give a little bit of a preface, if you will. I am a product of the mid-'80s. Literally. Quite literally. But my mom was a huge movie person, as was my dad. Probably my mom more so, and I grew up with the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and all the way through the decades. Those kind of movies were the bread and butter in our house. If you didn't know those movies, you were in trouble. So musicals and the black and white Bing Crosby's, Bob Hopes of the world.
Fred Astaire.
Ooh, that was he was good. Man, that guy knew how to dance. But that was kind of what my movie history kind of comes from. What about you, Scotty?
Oh, man. Shoot, I'd say I probably got into movies in the early 90s. It's probably when I really started watching stuff, so a lot of goldies there. A lot of good stuff. Horror movies was definitely my thing. I think the first movie I saw in theaters was Child's Play. It's probably about 3 or 4 at the time, so it was on a level playing field with Chucky. He was a little bit more terrifying.
You can tell it left an imprint. I mean, you remember the fact that you're 3 or 4 years old and still remember.
It was deep. It was real deep. Yeah, horror movies is definitely my thing. All the new MCU and all that is definitely where I draw my line.
I grew up in the 80s, and I basically watched movies constantly throughout the entire run of my life. And I don't know. I think just my whole family just constantly watched movies, and my sisters have a completely different taste than I do. But yeah, we all will watch anything, I think. Except I think my little sister will not be watching it because we introduced her to the mini-series when she was probably like 4 or 5. And so it kind of made her terrified of clowns from that point forward. And I don't think she's going to be really happy about watching the new one.
The new one looks
amazing.
Scary as
You're
crap.
There are people that are afraid of clowns?
Yeah, weird.
I was unaware that was a thing.
Yeah, they're so happy, and amazing clowns like Krusty.
Always smiling.
Yeah.
They give you stuff.
They do. You remember that game show in the 90s with the clown? I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I've been trying to think of it for the last 5 minutes.
I have no idea.
It was a game. It was a giant game show that would and it's hosted by this clown. This just your stereotypical red crazy hair.
And it was a serious
It was a game. I'm dead serious. It was a dead serious game show.
Yeah, that's funny.
If you hear it thumping, it's me because I'm slamming the table. I get really worked up.
Yeah,
but no, it was a legitimate game show. Just like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? Do you remember that one?
Yes.
All right. So it's something similar to that,
but with clowns.
Everything about it was clowns. I'd have to look it up, but it was either a late 80s or early 90s show.
I mean, it must have been canceled pretty quickly, I would imagine.
No, it actually ran on for a while. That's the funny bit about it. It actually ran on for a bit. It was,
On this fun side note, who's here has seen the movie Clown? The movie is
Oh, that new one you're talking about.
yeah.
Are you talking about
The Bozo Show.
Wow. Bozo the Clown, I do know, but I didn't know there was a game show or anything.
Yeah, it was.
I've
You
only-
dealt
I've
with
only-
little kids would hop on all the time. They would be throwing crap at the face of Bozo. It
Little
was.
kids are hopping on Bozo. What kind of shows were you watching?
This is the '80s. Everything was okay in the '80s.
Yeah, think of how much cocaine was on the Bozo show.
Oh man, yeah, that was. Those are weird. Those are weird times.
Strange times.
Yeah.
Strange.
Building blocks of our society today.
Right. Cocaine?
Cocaine. But yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I pretty much watched movies growing up all the time, and even like in my 20s, because I had no money, all I did was watch movies because there was nothing else to do, because I couldn't go drink because I had no money to go drink or do whatever. So yeah, it's pretty much a escape for me.
Yeah, I think, speak for at least myself, but I think the main reason why we wanted to do this is because we have an opinion, and we just like forcing our opinions on everybody else.
Yeah. Listen to my opinion.
I have the correct opinion.
I don't have opinions. I have facts.
That's right. That's right.
But so as far as news, any fun? And besides, anyone obviously heard about the Netflix and Disney thing?
Dude, Disney's gonna pull all their stuff from Netflix
They
and
are.
make their own streaming service.
Yes, I have heard about that.
You know what Netflix is fighting for though? Keeping Marvel and
MCU.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that they're still trying to fight to actually keep.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because they have their own run of Marvel shows so they would have a little more
Yeah, because Netflix
money in it.
produce
Yeah.
the Defenders.
Right.
So
which just came out on Friday.
it's,
So
We'll see what happens. Obviously, Disney owns that crap, so
yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, I think it will probably continue to be on Netflix.
I think
Because
only
they
at least
already
MCU.
are so involved that it's
Yeah, at least the MCU at a minimum. I think
Yeah.
Star Wars is actually pretty unlikely because I don't think there's any Netflix original
I mean, they
Star Wars
just
stuff.
bought it, right? So why would they want to keep it separate from their own entity anyway?
Yeah.
The whole point is to, have it together. I mean, personally, I don't really understand like what the whole point of having their own streaming services when it comes to that, because they're already getting all their money because people are buying the movies via Google Play, Apple iTunes, Amazon. Everyone's already bought all of the movies they're going to buy. And frankly, I just have no interest in paying another service, another $10 a month for Disney movies, because I don't have any kids, so I don't really care. So that's my biggest thing. But obviously, and a lot of people obviously have kids. So, but at the same time, like you don't think they don't already own those movies because they watch them so frequently.
Well, and that's what's interesting about the service. So Disney actually described what the service is going to involve. So it's not going to just be their current movies or even like the ones in the 90s. They're talking all their
Their
entire library, plus their Disney XD shows, Disney Junior shows. All that's going to be compiled into the streaming service.
Yeah.
I can actually see this thing actually blowing up pretty big. Anyone with a family that has kids that watches those Disney Junior shows and all that stuff, I think it's just gonna.
Do you think they'd be more apt to make movies and release it directly into the service?
To be honest,
they still talk about making another Tron.
I think one of the big things will be is because of the fact they have the Disney Vault now, which will be a big selling point for people buying the service. So you have a lot of movies that go away, and if you haven't already bought it, you don't already own it, you're not going to see that movie again.
Like 4 years.
Purchase for anywhere from 4 to 6, 8 years.
I still can't find Song of the South anywhere. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I don't think they ever actually, to be perfectly honest, I don't think they have released that one in over 15 to 20 years.
I think it's older than that. I think it's more like the early 80s was like the last time, like basically when VHS had come out was the last issue of it.
I think I remember seeing that they did release it, but I mean, we're talking almost 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
That they re-released it, but it was part of like a combination. It was like
the was it the the Toad one. Toad.
Mr. Toad.
Mr. Toad.
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
Toad. Someone's, I think that it was comboed with something, but it wasn't released by itself. But I mean, that was like we're talking like again 15, 20 years ago that they did that.
Not that anyone wants to actually watch that movie, because it's not that big a deal anyway. But I don't know. It's definitely interesting, and I get why they would do it as a company, but I'm not going to be buying that service. I mean,
well, if you think about it this way, and if you kind of break it down, this now we're getting into a little bit of financial idea. But like if you think about cable, right? Cable costs maybe about what $60 to $80
for the first year, and then it's like $150 for
right. But if you think about it this way, let's take that exact same amount and you say, all right, so let's say you're a family of 4, 2 parents, 2 kids. You can get Netflix for $10. You can get Hulu for $10, and then you can get Disney for let's say $15. That combined every month is about $35.
HBO.
Well, and then you can do HBO for another what? Is it?
But then you have to pay for the internet, huh? It's $15.
Yeah, but then you think about just the cable alone. That's why I say let's just use the estimate of $60 to $80 of just cable, and I know you have to get internet. But you think about it, you get cable and internet, which costs maybe about what $150.
Right, so you're already paying what you would pay.
You're going to be paying less.
Yeah.
You think about it, because I mean, you pay like I'm right now paying $60 for mine, and I have $150 up and down.
Yeah.
You do those 4 services, or even 5, you're spending an extra $40 or $50. You're saving $40.
Yeah, I'm definitely a cord cutter. I mean, everything I do is, now they're coming up with more, options for TV and stuff. There's YouTube TV just came out in Dallas. It was offered. Hulu has their live TV streaming offer, and I'm sure there's going to be more coming out. There's more customization just so to allow you to make better options, but for certain people. I mean, there's obviously what's the streaming service, the first one that came out, I can't remember it. But yeah, so there's so many different options now that it's just, I don't know. Everyone's just splitting up. Like the fact that CBS is their own thing, and they're about to come out with their Star Trek series. Yeah. Apparently, there's another Star Trek series already in the works behind that one. And it's going to be only on their streaming service. It's not going to be airing on TV. Their first episode's airing on TV. All the rest episodes are going to be only on their CBS app.
And I think that's kind of where I think cable is going to end up going overall. I think cable right now it's kind of like you pay for. It's just basically going to be
you're paying for so much.
It's going to be cable a la carte. You pick what services you specifically want. Each service is going to provide their own kind of unique thing. Because I mean, you look at Netflix. How many Netflix originals are there? From like right now,
shoved down my throat.
There's like, and this has been the kind of trend for the last 4 years, maybe 3 or 4 years that they started this Netflix originals. Yeah. And I mean, it's just
and they're spending like $50 billion or some insane amount of money for
originals for next year and going on like the next couple of years. Yeah.
So, but I get it. I get why people would want it. I just never would buy it. There's other avenues to get any of those movies that you would want to rewatch.
And I think that's kind of why most people are going this way, because there's people who pay for, cable, but they're like, I only use maybe 5 or 6 channels.
Yeah.
So now you can say, well, I like this specific type of content. I'm going to pay for this streaming service. And they just focus on that streaming service, or like the 2 or 3 streaming services that they like.
Yeah.
And now they get all the content that they're actually wanting. So, I mean, I get it why Disney's doing it. I can see why they're pulling it. And, I mean, I could say there is actually some real value for what they're proposing. You got to know the price.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, Pat talked about like already owning those movies. So that's one thing for past movies that's already been out. But going forward, I mean, again, you talk about the big market for this is going to be the families, people with kids that watch these movies. So now, instead of every time a new Disney movie comes out, I don't have to go to Walmart, go to Target, whatever, and spend $15, $20, $30 on this movie. I'll just might get out the way for a little bit, and they'll be on Disney streaming service probably about the same time the movie gets released. And so I can pay $10 a month and let my kids watch whatever Disney movie comes out. You don't have to worry about it. So I mean, sure, all the old movies we probably already own. It's just going to be more of a going forward process and stuff. And yeah, I mean, you got all those stay at home moms, stay at home dads, like, and all that stuff where you can just say, hey, turn on this, go. Like,
Well, if they're smart, like what they should do is do like kind of a Hulu thing where there's different channels that you can browse.
Right.
Like have a kids channel, or have a Disney XD that's always airing something commercial free, and like have their own channel, and then you can switch to a different channel of Disney movies, classic animated. Like, instead of having to go through and browse each one, just have something playing, like all the time, streaming all the time.
And they could even pull something similar to what Vudu does, where they could say, hey, we're going to put the movies that are still coming out to disc, they can put it on that streaming service a week ahead of time, maybe 2 weeks ahead of time, as an incentive to say, come check our stuff out.
Yeah.
I mean, you heard that Boomerang has a service now, streaming service.
Really?
Yeah.
Boomerang, yep. Boomerang just barely started their streaming service.
Because Boom is part of Cartoon Network, right?
Correct. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, they're technically associated, but I mean, Boomerang
Is their own thing.
is their own thing. So like, you can download it on your phone now. And like it's crazy, like all the different streaming services that are coming out now. I think we're just going to see in the next 2 years. I just can see pretty much everything is being turned to that streaming service.
Yeah. Well, I know that when I got HBO Now, like the biggest problem with it that I had was I couldn't use it really on my TV at all. I had to browse on my phone and Chromecast it to my TV, and even that was kind of iffy. So it's just like, as long as they work out the design aspects of all of these apps, like I'm perfectly fine with it. But it seems like most of the Netflix has only gotten clunkier because they've added so much stuff. It's impossible to actually browse like to something of a genre that you want to see. Like I think I was even like looking through like independent movies, and they had like big budget movies listed in the independent movies. Those are not independent movies.
Well, one of the big problems is, if you notice, they changed the rating system. Now it's just
the
basically the thumbs up
down.
and thumbs down, and then it just basically says what is your percentage of
how much you would
actually end up liking it, and then it kind of the categories are now just really skewed. So if you look under one movie, they'll have like 6 or 7 different categories for one movie. It's like a horror, comedy, thriller, independent.
Yeah.
You know, like all this different stuff, and it's just kind of I think it's gone really bad in that sense.
Yeah, they all need to work on their design. Like that's the biggest problem I have. Yeah. But yeah.
I mean, I think Netflix is working towards it, because I'm kind of like 50-50 on Netflix's design. Like, I think that there's things that they've done poorly. I think there's things that they've done that are much better than from when I initially got Netflix to however many years ago when it first came out. I mean, it's learning a lot. And it is a learning process.
Yeah.
Like, everything you do is a learning process. You're going to try something.
Yeah, but how many years have we now had the left and right scrolling?
Well, no.
That's like 4 years old now.
Right.
And it's like...
But, I mean,
now you've added a splash screen in the background, so I know, like, what movie it is. Like, well, you already showed me what movie it is. I don't need that.
Yeah, there's, like I said, there's things that are be learning curves and all that stuff. There's things that they've done that I don't think they did. But I do like a lot of things of... marathoning TV shows on Netflix. It's a lot of them are now like auto skipping the intros.
Yeah.
And that knows, I've noticed when watching, like kind of binge watching those shows, it also skips the previously on parts of episodes if you're concurrently watching an episode. So there was a show I was watching, I watched 3 or 4 episodes in a row. I never got the title sequence again. I never got the previously on again. But after I closed out of Netflix, came back to it later, turned it on and watched that show, I got the previously on, and then it went in. So it knows that, like, hey, you didn't just watch this. Yeah, you didn't just watch an episode like since the last time you were on. So let me remind you what you just saw, and then go through. Yeah. And then again, I went to that second episode, and it skipped the title sequence, the previously on. So it is learning stuff. There are some things that it is doing right. I do not agree with the thumbs up, thumbs down thing, like, because, you know, again, we have a whole topic of wonderfully bad movies. How would you thumbs up or thumbs down to those movies? Because you're like, this movie's good, but it's also very bad. Like, it's not just a thumbs up, thumbs down.
It's a little more complicated.
Kind of ordeal, exactly. And then, yes, I do agree with they are like, I don't know if there's a name for the problem that I hate on, you know, you see it on all social medias and Facebooks and all that stuff, but the 1,000 hashtags that everything gets.
Yeah.
Instead of just, and that's what Netflix is doing. Instead of saying, hey, this is a horror movie, it's, hey, this is horror and comedy and thriller and drama and this, and like every movie gets 15 different tags on it, and that's why half the categories you look in, you're seeing the same movies over
Right.
and over
What was the
again.
movie that was like not a comedy, but it won Best Comedy at the Golden Globes? Like it was like Robert De Niro or Robert Downey Jr. like won the award for Best Comedian or something, but it was like he was in like Iron Man or whatever. Like I forget what it was.
I don't remember.
I just remember every comedian like making fun of it, and it was because it was just so ridiculous. Because no comedian actually won. It was so I don't remember. It was a year ago.
Like I said, I think in about 2 years' time, I think that's all things are gonna get like a lot more focused in that area. So I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the topic of the show.
Are you like a crazy person?
But we're going to talk about the rise of heroines. And I think the main question I think we really want to ask ourselves is do we think that they're more compelling now or in the past? And how do they measure up to their male counterpart?
I don't know. Like I'll go first. Like personally, I don't I don't ever look at a movie and go, oh, there's a female lead or oh, there's a male lead. Like I don't really care what. I mean, I'll watch literally any movie, but nothing makes anything more or less compelling than the sex of the main character doesn't matter to me. It's the story that happens, how it unfolds, and like the side characters around those main characters are what intrigue me. So it's like the rise of them. Like I'm all for it. Like I would consider myself a feminist, but at the same time, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't. It does make it a little more evened out. It definitely evens out some acting roles and some like opportunity for the actresses that are coming up, and it's not they're not hiring just the hot young like this thing. They're hiring 35-year-olds, 40-year-olds, like, and those characters are just as good, if not better, because they're already adults. It's like it's good to see an adult. I don't need to see a teenager every time I watch a movie. I'm okay with watching some middle-aged people like resolve some real human issues as opposed to, oh, I'm in high school, or oh, I'm in college, or I don't need more of those. I need a more fleshed out characters than that.
Well, and I think that's kind of where I stand on it. And the issue I have, and it's not that I have a problem with women in movies. I think it's actually really good. I just am a big proponent that they're not just put in there for the sake of being there, but they actually are actual characters trying to achieve something. Yeah. And I think one of the examples, and you can kind of draw it, because this is kind of what really started a lot more, you see a lot more women in movies, was the start with the Twilights and the Hunger Games, especially Hunger Games. Hunger Games really kicked it off. Hunger Games, I think, really was a really big milestone in that sense. And I think Twilight is actually kind of like
a subtle hero.
I wouldn't even say that. I think that was a bad example. That's an example of how a bad female lead is. And you see a good female lead, which I think Jennifer Lawrence did a phenomenal job overall.
Well, and I think the characters themselves are like, I mean, I honestly, I've only ever watched the riff tracks of Twilight, so I have no idea about anything about Twilight except for the riff tracks and yakety sax of running through the forest. That was hilarious. But like the Hunger Games, intrigued me. Like stuff was constantly happening. She was having to make constant choices of like how it would affect her. Protecting her family and protecting her friends and family. So yeah, it definitely created a more complicated, complex character, and the sex of the character didn't matter.
And that's kind of where I guess my point comes from, is like what's interesting about Katniss's character, with Jennifer Lawrence, is she was trying to do what she could to survive, and she was just she did what she could, but she was put into a very over-the-top situation and was able to succeed and go forward with it. And each movie kind of added to that intense situation she had to continue to deal with. And whereas, like I said, with Twilight, I think it was a bad example because there was no strength to her character. She was just basically a girl that just kind of sat there and waited for everybody else to basically placate to her.
Yeah.
And I think that's not really interesting to watch. I mean, I know it has a huge fan base. I understand a lot of people love it, but I think that's an example of a bad.
I mean, it's
character.
completely self-masturbatory. Like, that's exactly what Twilight is.
Exactly.
It's to make teenagers think that they are the most important person, that boys or men or whatever should fight for them and like fight each other for them. It's going back to a pre-feminism kind of mentality of, which is fine. There are people that still believe in some of that stuff. That's fine, but like it doesn't make for a good movie. It doesn't make for a good conflict.
Why would you root for her? She throws herself off a cliff just so the guy can come and pick her up. Like, that's crazy stuff. I just, like I said, I think that those are two good examples, though, of what a bad female like heroine, and you have a really good one. And I think that's kind of what we want more, is like the Katnisses and those kind of things.
Yeah, for sure. Stronger characters, more intelligent. Because that was a big thing, is that how intelligent can a girl who's literally in high school, it's supposed to be like 15, right?
Yeah. Like,
she doesn't know anything about the world. Like, I'm 36 and I barely know anything about the world. But yeah, it's definitely, they were clearly catered to two different audiences, which is fine, because they just, it's a movie studio trying to make a movie to make money. That's exactly what it is. I mean, we're talking about finances before, but yeah, that's all it is, really. Like, they weren't doing it as an art project, so it is what it is, and you either like it or you don't. What about you, Scott?
I think the thing right now is I think it is a trend, and I say that in not the way that most people think. I think it is a lot of movies are going to be placating towards going out of their way to make women leads or make women main characters and all stuff, because it is a big thing right now. And what I'm hoping that this trend kind of does is that when it becomes not so much of a trend but more of just the norm, to where you don't think twice of when this new action movie comes out and Tom Hardy starring, or any Ben Affleck's Batman or stuff. Like, you're not.
Is Tom Hardy's mouth covered?
You're not sitting there. Yeah. You're not sitting there and you're not focusing on the fact like, oh, there's this new action flick with this guy that's leading it, and hopefully this trend will eventually balance out and get to that point as well, to where you will have those movies coming out that have strong female leads or strong female characters, and it doesn't seem out of the norm. They're not putting them in there just to make sure they have a strong female in there. They're putting it in there because it works for the movie.
Give Black Widow a freaking movie. Like,
yeah.
Tell me more about her past and her, development as a character.
And so you have some movies coming out that I think have done that. Atomic Blonde recently. It is very much of a, James Bond, Jason Bourne kind of like crossover movie, but you're doing it with a female lead. And there's no point in this movie where anything has been stylized or set aside to where you think, man, they really just stuck a lady in here just to make sure that they had a female lead. Like, that movie worked exactly the way it should have, and that's what I'm hoping to see going forward. That is not a standout like, hey guys, look at us, we put a female lead.
We didn't have to.
So, make sure you come see our movie, because we're super pro ladies. We need to make sure that this is a female lead movie. It doesn't matter.
And that's kind of that point. That's kind of why I really enjoyed the new Wonder Woman. I really did. I thought it was actually, even though it is basically DC Captain America, and I think we can all agree it is DC Captain America.
But she did a fantastic job.
But she does a fantastic job, and I think what really I liked about it is it showed a lot of different sides of her, from being extremely vulnerable, having things, losing a lot of things that are important to her, to having to make the decisions, to where she, and her, even though she's so strong, even though she's she's obviously super strong, she still can't do everything. And right. I think that was really good to kind of be able to still show vulnerability, even though she's still a woman. I think, and that's what
even the strongest person needs to rely on some of their friends.
Right, and it's not. You don't have to be a guy. You don't have to be a girl. Everybody has those moments, and I think that's what really made the movie really compelling.
Yeah.
Even though, like I said, we can joke about it, but it was still a very good movie overall.
Yeah.
Take out the last 10 minutes, and it's probably a great movie. The last 10 minutes just... Man. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the last 10 minutes where they were literally in a green screen the entire movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that whole final fight with the God of War was just totally
that you saw
misplaced,
coming.
unnecessary.
Yeah, and he's a god.
Didn't
So-
need to happen. Like, none of that needed to happen.
We had the Darth Vader no. I mean,
But
anytime you throw the Darth Vader no, it's kind of one of those moments you just go, why did you do that?
It can't be.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
impossible.
Yeah, I think Atomic Blonde and Wonder Woman really nodded towards some of the really good old ones we had, like Ripley from Aliens. That was a very strong female lead that wasn't forced upon you. It didn't seem out of place. It felt right. Like, it felt like the movie worked having that lead. And especially now, I mean, being that movie, those movies are classics and stuff, you couldn't imagine any other actor in that place playing, you know, any other Ripley or any kind of thing.
And on top of that, like they try to kind of rehash that, and that's where it didn't work. It was in Prometheus or the new one. They basically gave it to another female lead, which is fine. But I don't know her from any movie or show or anything, and she was okay. But she basically was doing a ripoff of Ripley, like it was a Ripley 2.0 or whatever.
It's and that's where I think the distinction has to be made, right? These characters, they need to become iconic. These characters have to be iconic, and I think there have been some really good examples, but there's also been some really bad examples of where you have a character, and this is by the way, this applies just as much to guys as it does for girls, right? It's not specific to one specific gender on this, but there are some characters that have come out recently that are just not very iconic at all. Like, they go into these movies, they don't seem like they're part of that movie, and it just, you kind of lose something. For example, and I this is a movie I actually really like, Star Wars Rogue One. Now, I really like the movie. I like the actors, but to be honest, the only character that was really iconic was the droid.
Yeah.
He was the only one that had actual personality. You could have interchanged a guy or girl in any other role. Maybe Donnie Yen's character. Donnie Yen was actually pretty memorable. But even his side, like his buddy, like almost everybody could have been exchanged to a guy or a girl, and you wouldn't have thought twice. That's when I think the character, like, the gender really doesn't matter, and that's where it becomes a bad character, when they don't really become that memorable, iconic character. You think of Star Wars...
There's nothing separating him from any other character.
When you think of Luke Skywalker, it's an iconic role. I mean, and you obviously have a trilogy set on it, and to be honest, part of his kind of main thing is the fact that it was so original at the time. But that's kind of one of those, like, that's where those roles become iconic. Like Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker, Chris Hemsworth is Thor. These people become, Ripley is Sigourney Weaver.
So you think he's going to be turned into a female Thor? Like, what's the goal with that? Like because in the comic, Thor is now a female.
I don't know, and to be honest though, like I don't know. It's going to be like, it's like you're now going to have to fill those shoes. It's not like if you read comics for years and years and years, those roles eventually, like, some character will die off and another person will gain the mantle.
Take over, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's kind of harder to do that with movies, unless you basically wait 2 generations and entire generations die off and you reintroduce it with a different character. But it's kind of one of those things, like, there's obviously, like, good examples and bad examples of strong female leads and even strong male leads, but obviously we're talking about females in this sense. Yeah. And I do think like Wonder Woman is a great example, Ripley is a great example. Even in the movies, like some of the more animated movies that we have now, I think, and we'll take one of the Disney Pixar ones, is Finding Nemo versus Finding Dory. Which one do we like? I have 3 kids in my house, so I watch both of them a lot. And you watch And you think, well, Dory would be a great character to watch over and over and over again. And unfortunately, it's not the same. Finding Nemo, all the characters really worked together. Each one had its own unique style that really brought a really memorable moment to the movie. Whereas Finding Dory, you lose a lot of that. And I think it's because they were trying to shove it full of different things. And it really kind of loses
too many
something.
characters.
Well,
Too many characters. And it just kind of, you lost Dory in it. And that's where I think...
yeah.
I mean, I think part of that, too, is coming out with a movie that's got a really good side character and then assuming that they immediately make a really good main character, which doesn't always work.
Like with Pirates of the Caribbean with the Stranger Tides.
I mean, you got that, and you got, even recently, the Lego movie. Everybody loved Lego Batman in that movie. And Lego Batman came out, and I'm not saying Lego Batman wasn't great, but... it wasn't as good as you almost would expect with how much you enjoyed that side character of Batman in the Lego movie. But him on his own standalone movie, because you have to give this character now, character arcs and backstory and all that stuff, and stuff that, just didn't work with that character. So sometimes it's not necessarily, a male-female thing. It's just a lot of movies are like, hey, we made this movie, the side character everybody loved, let's make money on that too.
Yeah, well, they're about to do that with the my brain is fried today. Sorry, with the snowman, out of the Ice Princess.
Frozen.
Frozen, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So they're gonna make the snowman is Olaf is gonna have his own movie or something, right? So that's, I mean, as much as I like that actor and how funny I think he is, that doesn't mean Olaf as a character is going to work. Right.
And that's where I think because now that women and just in general are getting a lot more roles, it's still obviously on the lower end, right? They're not getting nearly as many roles as, say, their male counterparts. So I guess for me,
there's 100 movies and there's a handful of movies that are
right. So in my opinion, each movie that a woman stars in, or there's going to be a main character that's her, they need to really shine so that it becomes very iconic, so that they get more. Because I would like to see a lot more of that even spread where you see a lot more in that 50-50 ratio, because there are a lot of really interesting female characters, not just in comics, but in just in general. There's a lot of great stories that we would like to see.
What I really like are the ones that are surprising and kind of unknown. And you talk about the latest Mad Max, Fury Road. I mean, it's a Mad Max movie. You're not sure when it's coming out, if it's just going to be a rehash of the original or a continuation or how they're going to do it. And then out of nowhere, you're watching this movie and you realize Max isn't even really the main character in this movie. The main character is Furiosa. This movie is way more centered around her than anything else. You get a lot of tidbits from Mad Max and stuff that you want to see more of his character later on. But as of right now, this Fury Road movie is not really about Max. And it was great. I loved that movie. I loved everything about it.
Oh,
and
man.
at no point in that movie, or even releasing that movie, advertising that movie, did they try to shove down your throat hey, look, we're filming this action film and we got a
female lead,
Charlize Theron, and she's gonna come in and rock this out and be awesome and badass. It was all about hey, Mad Max, and then you watch it and realize, okay, she really just took the reins of that, and it was really well done.
It was a very good movie. But speaking to your... Oh, go ahead, man.
Well, I was going to say, that's probably why Atomic Blonde works so well, because Charlize Theron, brings it really completely. She is 100% invested in what the character she's in. Mm-hmm. The fact that she was in that monster movie where, her face is, she has so much makeup that makes her look terrible, but you believe that's her character for sure. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it's just the quality of actress really affects the character development of those strong female leads. You have to have a strong female actress be a strong female lead. You can't expect a nobody actress that you don't know, the girl from Covenant. You don't know anything about her. She doesn't really bring anything really strong to the character itself. You literally could have replaced her with any other actress that exists, and it would be the same exact performance.
Movie, but yeah.
And that this is an example. I know this movie is really big, and I'm going to receive a ton of flack for this. But Frozen, in my opinion, was a terrible movie.
Oh, it's
But
so,
flat
oh,
out,
it's so bad.
terrible movie.
And it was advertised as it was going to be an animated movie. They did not advertise it as a musical. It was advertised to be a Pixar movie, which is, you know...
And the
I don't go to Toy Story expecting it to be 60% or 70% music.
And like I said, I understand it was like this huge thing. But I'm sorry. Both of those sisters were annoying. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is bullcrap. For example, and I've talked about this with my brothers. You know, I'm one of 3 boys, and I still have my sister. But like I was talking about it, any relationship, if you have siblings, so her sister almost kills her. All right, and that's terrifying. That's pretty messed up, right? That's gonna mess you up. But at what point you go, gee, I'm just going to lock myself in my room, and I'm never even going to talk to my sister, even though she keeps pounding on the door. If I was the sister outside the door, I would have eventually kicked in my brother's door and said, dude, what is your freaking problem? You're weird. Right? I mean, the characters don't make sense. And then all of a sudden, she goes off, and she's like, I'm going to sing about letting it go, and all this great stuff. And
I can be who I am.
I'm going to be who I am. I'm sorry.
You should have learned that before becoming the queen of the area or whatever.
At what point did she go, well, gee, I have ice powers. I'm not gonna do something with this? No, that's stupid. She's like, as long as my sister stays away, why don't she just do fun little stuff? I would have made my room like a freaking wonderland. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I don't need to come out for any reason, but instead I'm just gonna... Her entire beginning part of the movie was sulking and feeling bad for herself. And then finally, like, she, like, decides to get out of her room, and they go through the whole coronation thing because she was forced to go become queen. Oh, darn, that must be a terrible life for you. And then she scares a whole bunch of people, and then she goes, makes her little happy cat. No, I'm sorry, that was a bad movie. And the problem is, the other problem I have with it is, the guy literally serves no purpose. Name what he does. He does nothing. He's literally there to be kind of like the love triangle between the evil prince and Anna.
Yeah.
That's the only point of him being there. And, oh my, I mean, I could go on for hours on why I think Frozen was just a bad movie. But, I mean, that's why I said each of these roles they get, each time they give these chances to be those strong female leads and things like that. When you have a bad one, I think it damages it more because now people become more hesitant to like go, oh, I'm going to really like the Atomic Blonde. I know a lot of people that when they said they saw Atomic Blonde, they didn't want to go see it. It's like, oh my gosh, here we go, just another female action thing. But it's like, no, I mean, give it a chance. There are some really good ones, and unfortunately, though, when you get those really bad ones, it damages, I think, the idea of them really becoming these strong characters.
Yeah.
And I think there should be a lot,
Well, I mean, I think the Ghostbusters
oh my gosh.
Entire thing kind of ruined that entire thing. I mean, because you could have easily made that Ghostbusters, like, I don't care what gender they are, as long as it's a funny movie. That's all I care about. And the entire movie was about... It was awkwardness. It was Napoleon Dynamite Ghostbusters, basically.
Oh, like how Napoleon Dynamite was better than Ghostbusters,
right? But that's what I'm saying. Like it's. Oh
my gosh!
I'm saying like the whole premise is that it's Napoleon Dynamite, like kind of I'm awkward. I don't know how to handle these other people.
Oh, okay, I get you.
Like every joke was about how awkward each individual character was. It had nothing to do with anything else, and. I mean, to be fair, like, that's what's really popular in comedy right now, like, in female comedy specifically, is I'm awkward and quirky, and, I mean, I love Tina Fey to the ends of the earth. I love, 30 Rock. It's one of my favorite shows, but at the same time, like, you can't... I don't know. It just didn't work for whatever reason. I watched the Red Letter Media, like, takedown of Ghostbusters, and, like, they talk about basically one of the main problems was... the director just had no influence on what was happening. He literally would just leave the camera running and they would improv. Like, the majority of the movie is like improv. Like, and so there was no real story. that they were using to actually make this movie. That's kind of a huge problem. You got to have a writer who actually writes what's happening, you have to go through an outline of like what's the conflict, how are we going to make each characters have their issues with each other, what's causing those issues, is there confusion happening, I'm just not I watched the movie. I gave it a chance, but I probably will never watch it again.
I gave it 2. I gave it 2 chances. One by choice, the other one by force.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's because a huge reason why he probably did the whole improv thing was what's his name, Paul Feig or whatever. He was all about like all of his media and everything was all about like, look, I'm doing Ghostbusters with women. Like it wasn't, hey, we're doing Ghostbusters again. Hey, I hope everybody likes this. Like, we want to stay true to the original. It was like, hey, look, we're doing Ghostbusters, but it's got women in it. Like, that was his 100% main focus. And he got women that are arguably, like, good comedians and stuff.
They just even as actresses, like, they would have been great. You got to give them structure, though.
Yeah.
You have to give... I mean, you can't always improv everything. Even SNL goes through a very rigorous testing process. What works, what doesn't work, they all agree on it, and they throw out the stuff that doesn't work.
Right. And he has even mentioned, like, when that movie came out and it got so much bad press and nobody liked it and all this stuff, he himself was even like, oh, well, everybody just hates it because it's women. Like, if it was the exact same movie with men, everybody would love it. And it's like...
No, it was a terrible movie.
Like, and and when you have that person as your writer and director... that's how you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see the writer director for Wonder Woman or Alien or any of these other like movies that we've just pointed on sit there and
come out and brag about how
social media about look, we're leading this with a woman, like, hey, we're doing Alien and it's got Sigourney Weaver as Ripley, like, you guys see that we're putting a woman in the lead.
Yeah.
Like, no, like, that's not their point. It was, hey, we wrote this really good movie, hey, we found a really good and I will use the word actor because they are all actors, whether they're male or female. It's like, we found a good actor, just so happens to be a female, and she's going to nail this role, and it's going to be awesome. And, that's... Ghostbusters was a huge point of, like, that's how you fail it. That's when you make the reason
press
of the movie.
Yeah.
That's when it's going to fail.
And I think the part that, like, for me, that I think... Because, I mean, if you look at the style, right, they treated it more like the real Ghostbusters 80s and early 90s cartoon. And, I mean, I actually was okay with that. When I first saw it, it was kind of bizarre to me, but the fact that it was a reboot, I was okay with. The part that it really got me, and that's when I just couldn't get behind it anymore, was when there was a specific scene where they're checking how the video is doing online, and so they're checking all the comments. And the comment they read was like, ain't no chick's gonna catch no ghost, or something along those lines. That, like, bothered me to no end, because it was basically...
self-referential.
Right. It was self-indulgent, saying, look at us, we're making the movie regardless of what you guys care about. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, that wasn't... I mean, I'm sure there were people out there who were saying, oh, these girls can't be Ghostbusters. I'm totally okay with that. But that was not the majority of the concern. The first trailer alone, I think, spelled out all the concern that everybody really had with it. Is it looked like a bad movie.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that the fact that these actresses or actors, and I mean, I think you're right. I think that's a perfectly way to describe them. These actors were bad actors. It was just the fact that it was a bad movie. One of the best characters I actually thought was Leslie Jones. And the reason why is she had an actually interesting quirk. She said, well, I know New York, right? When you see that in the trailer, like, oh, okay, she knows New York, she's been there for a while. But no, that's not what she actually... If you actually watch the movie, she started telling you history about the different buildings inside. Like, she actually studied New York history. And it was really interesting, like, someone who was just working a basic job knew actual historical facts about the city and the underlying facts. That was a really interesting point.
Yeah, because she just loved the city so much.
Because she loved the city so much. That was an interesting quirk that was, like, actually made her an interesting character, but they only visited one specific time, rather than, like, giving her more interesting things that she could have done with that.
Right.
And the other, like, for Melissa McCarthy, Melissa McCarthy, again, I think was one of the weakest members, and I think it's because, honestly, it was written that way.
Yeah.
She could have actually.
She had less physical comedy. Like the biggest physical comedy thing that she did was the turning her head around or whatever.
Or and then the testing of all those different equipment. She like started getting flailed all in the alleyway.
Right. So I mean, I think it's just she's more of a physical actress because everything she does is like very Chris Farley, very very huge, big, overdone, and falling on things, and you know.
I think like I said, that was the part that the movie started like just almost immediately lost me. It was that one part. It's like I understand that there has been a lot of opposition to the film, and I can appreciate that. But when you almost to the borderline insult the audience, is where I draw the line. And like I find it petty because it just make a good movie.
Well, I mean, on top of that, not to get into politics or anything, but it's kind of like what happens in politics. They refer to all of the Middle America as the flyover state. Everyone else on the ends are the intelligent people. Everyone in the middle is stupid, and they make their movies as such to reflect that. And that's probably one of the biggest problems with Hollywood, in my opinion, is that they, instead of assuming that the people you're talking to is stupid and having to explain everything. Just assume that they already know it, and if they're interested in enough and they don't know it, they'll go look it up. It's not gonna go over their head like, well, I didn't get that, and then they'll never think about it again. Like if they're interested in it and they like the movie, they'll go look it up.
Right.
I mean, it's like the what's the trailer for the book that just Ready Player One. Like there's so many references in that movie. The best thing they can do is not even refer to what they're driving, just ignore that fact entirely, have it on screen, ignore the fact that you're making a reference to something else, and let it be what it is on the screen. Like you don't need to reference anything. You don't need to explain anything. You don't need to dumb down or mansplain anything.
Oh man.
Like it's so unnecessary. You don't need to do it. Just assume that people will know it. So I don't know. That's probably my biggest problem with Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, as like a final note on the the whole Paul Feig thing with this Ghostbusters, that I just absolutely I've never even watched it yet. Like I just haven't taken the day that I'm like, you know what, I feel like wasting my day and I'm gonna watch this horrible movie. And I think it was like as soon as all that stuff started with even him coming out and being like, oh, everybody's just getting mad because it's women and all this stuff, I think he immediately took that as like, all right, this is my safety net. If I make a bad movie, it's just going to be I'm
going to blame the audience, not me.
It's everybody's, anti-women and everybody's all this stuff, and that's why it's a bad movie. And like I would have respected him more had he been the kind of director to be like, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do everything I can to make the best possible movie I can and give it to where these people that are having all these concerns and complaints and like shooting my movie down have no leg to stand on other than I don't like it because they're women, and that will prove the problem. But that's not what he did. He just let this terrible movie
doubled down.
happen, and yeah, I was like, well, you know what? I'll just blame it on all you guys being sexist, and that's why you don't like my movie.
But I think that's why I think some of these like more recent examples of women coming out doing really amazing things are really showing off the best of what women have to offer in Hollywood. I mean, even this new Star Wars The Force Awakens, right? Now The Last Jedi, right? That's going to be coming out. Rey, I mean, you can almost directly correlate Rey to Luke Skywalker. I mean, their starting story is almost identical. They start out pretty much the same, except Rey is by herself. Luke's family gets like murdered in the worst way, and they both end up going off to the main like bar area, kind of settlement area, getting in the Millennium Falcon, and both leaving
in the desert. Yeah,
in the desert. I mean, it's almost like frame for frame we're going the same way. They eventually meet up with Han Solo and Chewbacca. I mean, it's that similar, but nonetheless, I mean, Luke Skywalker was very interesting in his own right. Obviously, he was also the very first introduction to, like, you could say a Padawan becoming a Jedi. And it was a really interesting thing. It was never had like obviously that's when Star Wars first came out, so that's why you can really say Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker. It was the very first of its kind. Rey obviously is now kind of like the next generation of that, and I think she brings her own really unique qualities to it. And I think the actress has actually done a fairly decent job in really kind of making that character of Rey her own and make it interesting. There's only been a couple parts that I've actually not been as big of a fan of, but I could say the same thing about the original Star Wars.
Right.
So, I mean, that just comes down to certain preferences in the movie, but I think Rey actually so far has been a very interesting character overall. And I'm really interested to see what they do with The Last Jedi, because I think, as we saw in The Empire Strikes Back, that's when you really start seeing Luke, like some real intense moments come from Luke Skywalker's character. So I expect the same from Rey in this The Last Jedi. I'm really interested to see what they do.
And on top of that, like losing Princess Leia or General Leia.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be a huge part of the story as well. So I have no idea how they're going to do it. They've already said that they're not going to digitally create her in the movie. So
so bad last time.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I didn't think the one in what was it? The Rogue One. I didn't think it looked terrible. I think because they showed the old guy and way more.
Yeah.
And he looked terrible, but
goofy.
she was like just having a cut throwaway scene with her digitally in there. It was fine. I had no problem with that.
I still can't get over that Darth Vader scene in Rogue One.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that scene is still so amazing.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
I missed half of it because when we were in the theaters, I had drank too much, beer, and so I had to pee, and that's the exact moment. I was like, okay, certainly nothing big is going to happen right now, right? So I had to leave. I was trying to hold it to the end of the movie, but I was like, it's still 30 minutes left. I can't do it. So, but yeah, it's Princess Leia being a huge character in the original series, like, you know, very influential in like what's happening, very driving parts of the movie, like more so sometimes than even Luke was. So
oh yeah, absolutely.
So it was it's going to be interesting seeing how they handle her character, or the fact that Carrie Fisher died. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I know that she's going to be a huge part of it, the whole trilogy, I think. So I don't know. Instead of just killing off the character like Han Solo. Spoilers if you haven't seen it.
What?
Han Solo died, so I don't know. It'd be kind of interesting, but yeah, like
some reverse Empire right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it literally killed his son.
Son kills his dad.
Yeah,
big story. But anyways, any final thoughts?
I have nothing.
All right. Well, I hope we get a lot more really awesome female leads in Hollywood, and really, I'm hoping. Like, obviously, I think they're talking about the new Tomb Raider. They're making a new one.
Are they?
I didn't even know. They're making a new Tomb Raider. I'm really excited to see that. They're basing it off more of the Square Enix game, the newer series. So I'm interested to see it. I hope it's really good. Anyways,
it's gonna be Tomb Raider the game, the movie.
That's right.
Yep.
Have they hired someone yet to play her?
I think they have. I think they already picked their actress. I don't remember her name off the top, man, but I'm pretty sure they already got the actress, Alicia Vikander.
Oh,
from Ex Machina. Ex Machina, yeah.
She'll do amazing.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like,
and she's the Man from U.N.C.L.E. Like the Man from U.N.C.L.E. was great.
Yeah, it was.
So I'm really excited to see what.
I don't know why that wasn't more successful. It was way better than I think it was given credit for.
I think because it kind of falls into that secret agent type genre, and unfortunately, I think like
it's
James
the original.
Bond. Well, I mean, but I get that, but I'm just saying it's kind of like there was been a lot of movies.
Just too many spy movies.
Yeah, that came out I think around the same time. It was still a really good movie. I watched it the other day about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was a fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
But anyways, so moving on to our next happy little section is our wonderfully bad movie of the week.
That's quite enough of that, thank you very much.
Patrick, did you watch this one this time?
parts of it.
That's okay.
Yeah,
It's-
I think I've seen the whole movie in its entirety throughout like 10 watchings. So
Shaolin Soccer. Oh my goodness. Same people brought you Kung Fu Hustle, if you are familiar with that.
I am.
They have made several other movies, of which I have not watched all of them. But the big two ones that like they came out around the same time.
I think within 3 years of each other.
Yeah,
two.
Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle. I love this movie. I love everything about it. It's so bad, but it is amazing. It's horribly cheesy, and a lot of the lines don't even make sense. They just don't. Like, there's one specific part. I think this kind of sums up how bad this movie is, but how much enjoyment you'll get watching it. Is there's a scene where the main character named Iron Leg, like I think that's literally all they refer to him as, and every one of his brothers that were part of his kung fu group, they refer to it themselves as this specific thing they trained under. For example, there's Iron Leg, a Steel Leg, Iron Head. There's like one that's a shirt. I mean, there's like all kinds of different little like things they trained under, and that's kind of how they refer to each other throughout the entire movie. So Steel Leg goes to this bakery. His interaction with the lady that makes the rolls is absolutely priceless. But there's a point where he starts like randomly singing to her for no reason whatsoever. He's just randomly singing to this girl across the way, telling her like how great her rolls are. And she's like saying, you need to shut up. Don't, like, I'm working here. And this other random guy, for some reason, just stands up saying, can't you tell he's singing from his heart? And then he's like, when I hear it, it almost makes me want to explode. And they break out into an entire dance routine. Makes no sense whatsoever. It's just one of those, it's just a great movie to watch all around.
Yeah, sure. Just watch this movie, and when they make the discovery of, because it all comes around to the group or the Steel Leg brothers wanting to make Shaolin Kung Fu more popular so that he can train people and it can spread and he can teach people and all stuff. So first he tries to make it into like a music group, and they try some other things, and this all fails. And then when you run into this down on his luck coach who wants his own team to coach, they realize we can bring Shaolin Kung Fu to soccer, and the masses will love it, and we'll get to promote Kung Fu, and it'll be awesome. And so you just get to watch them go through all these training of trying to like learn how to Kung Fu their way into soccer. The scene where he's trying to teach Steel Leg control by telling him that he can't play with the rest of the group until he can kick an egg without breaking it. And so it starts with throwing an egg at his foot, which cracks open, and then the fourth or fifth brother was just this huge fat guy now, just starts mowing over everybody to try to like tackle him and get to his foot, and just eating the egg off his dirty, nasty shoe because it was his egg that they took from him. And just the back and forth of that. Takes a second egg, throws it, breaks it right on his crotch, and like he breaks away from everybody. He's charging at him. So thinking quick on his feet, he grabs a third egg, throws it into his other brother's mouth, and then he just gets tackled, and it like, oh man. He's just going at that egg so hard. You see him like his toes point out, and he's like grabbing the grass, and just like, oh man.
Well, the physical comedy in this movie, because I remember, like I said, I've seen it in various parts. The physical comedy is like really what makes it over the top.
Right.
Like, it's so great.
I mean, it was just, and for I don't know what the budget is for this movie, but for a seemingly low budget movie, that they film it really well. The acting's done really well in this movie. Everything's pieced together. The story flows from one to the other. Even though you have these ridiculous moments and stuff, and the kind of standout things, like it was just the movie itself was done incredibly well for what you would expect out of a movie like this. This is a movie that you would expect a couple of guys in their garage like threw something together, and it's real cheesy and looks bad, but man, when you see some of the CGI on this movie where they're kicking a soccer ball and it's literally tearing the field up as it flies through the sky. And
Or a dark demon is like sucked into the ball as he kicks this thing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
The budget for it was $10 million.
yeah, that's a lot more than you'd expect when you A, see a trailer for this movie, or B, even just watch the movie in itself.
Yeah.
You
But it
would-
made $42 million in
Yeah,
the
you
theaters.
would never watch this movie and be like, man, they must have spent $10 million filming this movie. You're like, I could see a budget of like 50 grand, maybe. And then somebody that knows, CGI really well, like, hey, I got a buddy that knows how to run this program. We'll get this all worked out and post.
Yeah,
It'll
people
be
do
great.
this for fun on Reddit now.
Yeah.
Of course, like back then, it came out in 2001. So back then, it took a lot more effort and a lot more computing power.
Right.
So I mean, technically, now you're like, yeah, 50 grand easy, but like back then, it was a huge ordeal to. I mean, I'm trying to even think like 2001 movies, like
Oh my goodness.
the biggest movie at the
There's
time.
got to be a Matrix around that time at some point.
That sounds right. Yeah.
But I mean, and what's so funny, like, this movie was just hands down it's just a great movie to watch, regardless of the time. It is such a funny movie. I think one of the more memorable scenes is their very first match, and it's where they're going up against some random guys from the neighborhood that the golden leg coach, the one that got his leg broken, who's coaching him now, he gets this like ragtag random team of like these weird bizarre people, and they're saying, oh yeah, we'll have a good clean match, and this like monkey wrench falls from this guy's random shorts, and just like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a mechanic, I'm on call, so sometimes I just gotta go run and do these things, and you're like, oh no, that's totally fine. And then the game starts progressing where these guys are like literally trying to kill these Shaolin monks. Like they're trying to kill them. And what's great is as all these guys are falling over, the main steel leg starts crawling through the field, randomly finds an like soldier's helmet from World War II, pulls out a gun and starts shooting stuff. Explosions are flying everywhere. Oh my, like this movie is so ridiculous, but it's so much fun to watch.
So
oh my
well
goodness.
done. And it snuck out. Like, I would easily beg to say that I did not watch this movie in 2001 when it came out.
No,
Like,
absolutely
it had
not.
been well after I graduated high school. Like, it was just randomly happened upon it somehow, some way. I might have even seen Kung Fu Hustle, and then from that, we're like, oh, well, like, there's a Shaolin Soccer. Like, I guess I'll watch that too.
See, that's the funny part is I think I saw this before, or the parts of it before, because my friends would watch this all the time back in the day. So here's an example of the movies that came out the same year: Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Planet of the Apes, Black Hawk Down, Donnie Darko came out that year. Pearl Harbor, Fast and Furious came out that year. Ocean's 11, A Beautiful Mind. Not another teen movie because it's classic. Hannibal, like it's insane.
It's a massive movie.
Monsters
coming out.
Inc. Monsters Inc. came out.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that was
Training
competing
Day.
against a lot of.
Oh, the Mummy Returns, A Knight's Tale. I mean, there's, oh my gosh, there's
Shrek.
all in that same year. All in that same year.
2001 was such a good year. Man.
Except for that one thing, the one thing that happened in September, around the 11th.
There was that thing.
There was that
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but oh my goodness, that was, oh my goodness.
Well, at least there's plenty of stuff to distract you.
But if we at least want to say, like, if you're gonna watch Shaolin Soccer, we got to put in the honorable mentions of, obviously we've talked about Kung Fury. So if you watch Shaolin Soccer and you enjoy it, you need to watch Kung Fury. Kung Fury was one that I wanted to mention, but
Kung Fu Hustle.
Kung Fu Hustle.
Absolutely
one.
must watch. Must watch it now.
But Kung Fury also in there as well. You know, add that one in. That's a quick little
30 minutes.
35, 40-minute short movie on Netflix. And continuing into the same group of movies that you should just go ahead and just marathon all these one weekend. Kung Pao Enter the Fist. I don't know if you guys remember that one.
Oh, yes.
But that one is up there as well.
Yeah.
I don't think, like, there's one scene in that movie I don't think I'll ever get over. It's the fact when he fights the cow, how he defeats the cow is by milking it, like, beyond dry.
Yes.
Like, this thing is now, like, it's completely drained.
Yes. That was the guy who they train incorrectly and teach him that him losing is the way that you're supposed to win. So every time you punch him in the face or kick him in the chest, he's like, "Yeah, you like my technique? That's called your fist to my face."
I think I like the Kung Pao movie way more, but I think it's a way bigger cult hit.
Yes.
I agree.
The only thing I had with Kung Pao is Kung Pao has that. There's that character that like makes that random noise or something.
Oh, the chick?
Super annoying. Yes.
Wee 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 wee.
That joke gets played out a little too much in that movie, but other than that, oh man, it's so good. So I would advertise a Kung weekend and just watch Kung Fu Hustle, Shaolin Soccer,
Kung Fury,
and Kung Pao. Just do them all together and just make a weekend of it.
Yeah.
You'll definitely not regret it.
Oh, you know you won't. Oh,
Yeah.
they're all good. They're all good. You stuck with us this long, you should deserve a cookie. I don't have one for you, but just imagine one.
I recommend
floating
going
right through your screen, right to you.
Go to the store, pick up a tube of Toll House cookie.
Just write a little note saying from Midnight Reel.
From Midnight Reel.
And there you go. And that'll be from us. But anyways, come back next time. We'll have more stuff to talk about and more wonderfully bad movies that you should watch. See y'all later.
It's not in your best interest to disconnect me. Someone could get hurt.